So here we've got a 22 hollow point.
Yeah, look at that
versus
difference.
the round from the Kar98k. If you get hit by the the Kar98, you're certainly not getting back up again this century. So you can have a look just at the size of the projectile. It's absolutely colossal.
Hey guys, HelpingHans here, bringing you a new military artifact video in collaboration with Whispers from the Past Militaria. And this time we're going to be looking at an authentic Kar98k, a non-Russian capture. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
All right, guys. So I'll just preface this discussion by saying that I'm not an expert in firearms by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a shooter myself. So my passion resides with awards, edge weapons, signatures, personality pieces, which I do regard myself as a global standard expert in. This particular piece I acquired some years ago direct from a veteran. So I'm not sure if we've got any Aussies in the audience tonight. I live in Melbourne, which is down south, and which is currently experiencing a really nasty lockdown. But that aside, I had to travel by car to another state called Adelaide, and I purchased this from the Barossa Valley region, where a lot of World War II veterans relocated after World War II. So the veteran that I bought this particular rifle from was in his very, very advanced late 80s, potentially even early 90s. I don't recall exactly because it was about 5 years ago now. But he did bring this back to Australia with him. And as Hans mentioned before, it's a very, very, very rare example. I'll go over why. So it's completely matching. So what happened throughout the course of the war is that during the war and the interwar period, all up there were approximately 14.5 million of these guys that were manufactured. This particular one is a 1937 model, and it was made in the Borsigwald factory, which was situated in the outskirts of Berlin, and it was a second factory that actually produced the Mauser. So the Mauser K98, as you see it, is an adaptation or an improvement from a previous model that they were using also during World War I, as to my understanding. So the rounds that they had in these ones obviously are of a bigger velocity. You can see them on the table there. They're absolutely freaking massive. I'll compare them in a moment to a 22 long round. And also these particular rounds are what they were using in both of the MG variants, in the 42 and the 34. So unlike what's depicted in Company of Heroes 2, the primary difference between the 34 and the 42 is the complexity of the firing mechanism and also how many rounds it shoots. So I believe off the top of my head, the MG34, the OKW MG, shoots at around 900 rounds per second, sorry, per minute rather, correction. And the 42 fires at, I think, 14 or 1500 rounds. It never realizes that because you would melt the barrel of fires in bursts. But as you can see with these particular rounds, if you had 1400 of these flying at your face per minute, you'd pretty much be vaporized very, very rapidly. It's an extremely powerful round. They say that the Kar98k sounds like a mini MG42. It's really, really, really loud. And at the local firing range where I play with this particular piece, and I dare say I no longer own this, a collector in Queensland has actually purchased this off me, and it's destined to be shipped up to Queensland. But when I did utilize it, you can accurately hit objects at the 500 meter mark with iron sights. So at this particular range where I shoot, we've got this big gong at 500 meters, which is almost invisible to the eye at that range. And you can shoot it with the K98k, or at least aim roughly in that direction, and you'll hit it almost every single time with this particular rifle. So even though it's a very old rifle and it was produced in 1937, and I've got a selection of other modern rifles that are very expensive, I would dare say that this is probably the nicest and the most accurate rifle that I've ever used and owned.
Why did you decide to sell it?
With collecting, I guess it gets to a point where when you're chasing high-end pieces, like what I chase. So for me, given that I'm chasing this as a side profession, much like how you consider your gaming and your streaming as a profession, the best teacher with regards to upskilling yourself is to handle the items. Now, some of the items that I acquire can cost upwards of 30, 40, 50,000 euro, which isn't cheap. So sometimes that requires for you to use your highly highly tweaked items like this one. I would say as your currency. So at the moment, I'm at a point where I've been able to enjoy it, and I've found a home for this particular piece that I believe is suitable. So with pieces like this that I would regard as heirloom pieces, I'm very selective to whom I sell them to. I wouldn't sell it just to anybody. It has to be somebody who understands the history and who appreciates it and who would definitely look after it. And I like to say to a lot of the guys who do collect that we never really own these pieces because we're not here forever. We're all mortals, and we're basically custodians of history. And the idea is that we own it for a short amount of time. We respect the piece. We then pass on the narrative to other people, which is why we're here today. It's all about storytelling and passing on the right information so that people understand what it's all about.
And how much would this piece be worth, since you're saying it's a very rare piece, since it's, as you said earlier, to me personally, that it was a non-Russian capture rifle, which is quite rare in itself?
Yes, I'll explain what that means in a second. Look, it's one of those pieces that's in the eye of the beholder. In Australia, it's very difficult to find something like this. So I've seen these go at auction upwards of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, even 15,000. I won't say how much the gentleman paid for it, just to protect his identity. He did get it for a good price because I regard him as a mate. But they're not cheap. And once again, that's because of the fact that it's not a Russian capture. So just to give people some context, all throughout the course of the war, lots of these were obviously either surrendered when the German lads were captured, or they were picked off their bodies after they were killed in action on the battlefield. And then they were repurposed at the end of the war. Also, millions of them were handed in during the surrender to the Soviets. And a lot of them were given to many other countries as weapons. So, for example, ironically, the Israelis still to this day train on a lot of these rifles, and in many cases, they actually still have the Waffenamt marks or the swastikas across the various sections of the rifle. This one is an early piece, so it doesn't have the swastikas. It's got the Imperial Eagle on it, which is pretty standard with this make and with this year. But a lot of the pieces, such as the sight hood, which I'll show in a moment, and also the various other bits and bobs on the rifle, were seen as superfluous. So the Russians would basically yank them off and melt them down to repurpose them.
Right.
And a lot of the pieces were also pulled apart and they were rebored. So what they would do is they'd basically strip the rifles back to pieces. They would have huge containers or buckets where they'll throw the individual pieces. They would have all of the internals remachined for a different ammo size, whatever standard ammo they were using at the time, and then they would put them back together again. So what you would have is you would have a hodgepodge of pieces from all different rifles. So the Germans were really sticklers for details. Even the screws have serial codes on them. So to find a rifle that still maintains all of its original matching numbers in this state, not having been pulled apart by the Soviets and actually surviving and migrating to Australia and ending up in the outskirts of South Australia, is remarkable, because the soldier carried it from the beginning of the war. I know for a fact that this particular piece was used in Stalingrad, was used in Leningrad, and the chap did tell me that he did put away a fair few number of Soviet troops with this particular rifle. So it was definitely a combat-worn rifle. You can see a lot of bluing to the metal, which is an indication of usage and age. So yeah, it's definitely a utilised service rifle. So all of your Volks Grenadiers and all of the boys you see in the game would have been using one of these.
Got a question in chat from Britboy. He says, would you say it is a heavy rifle for World War II in terms of its weight, or is it more of an average kind of weight for its time?
I think it's sort of, look, at the time I think they were relatively high tech in comparison to what a lot of the other armies were using. I mean, if you look, for example, at now we're digressing, but if you look at the Maxim is a machine gun that was used all throughout World War One, and also, I think one of the voice tags in the game is, the Soviets saying that it's an ancient piece of shit, or who says that? Hans? It's one of the. I think it's the Germans who are saying
I know
that
they call
they're
it
using
Stone Age. They definitely say, "You seen the Maxim? It's Stone Age."
Yeah, something to that effect, which is really true. So going back to the history of the MG 42 and also the 34, the 34 was the one that they first designed, but it was way too complex and too expensive to produce, which is why they ended up supplementing that with the 42. But both of those models end up seeing the entirety of the war. So to answer your question, I mean, I'm 6'6" and I'm a pretty big guy, so for me it's not that heavy. And most of the soldiers back then would have been, probably half my size. But I wouldn't say that it's a particularly cumbersome rifle. To be honest with you, you can fire it from the hip, and it feels very, very grounded and very solid. It doesn't feel like a flimsy piece of something that's built to last. And it's definitely reflective of that, that legendary German quality. So yeah, it's pretty easy to handle, I'd say, and it doesn't jam. It's easy to load. They did come with a clip. This one doesn't have a clip, so you have to manually insert the rounds. I usually chamber it with 5 rounds. And it did come in variations as well. So there were, scopes with varying magnifications. So they were used as snipers' rifles. So the sniper that you see in the game would have been using a variant. Fallschirmjägers, as you know, use these as well. But the Luftwaffe used a version with a completely different stock. So the stock was made out of Bakelite. So Bakelite was like the plastic of the day. For those of you who don't know what it is,
okay.
It was a revolutionary material. So there are Bakelite versions of this rifle that were lightweight for the paraboys. So they'll jump out of the plane with them to reduce the weight. And it's very rare and very expensive as well if you find something like that.
Wow. Got another question from Boy. It says, what is the functionality of the strap on the stock? The thing that looks a bit like a belt buckle.
Oh, so this is the only piece that's unoriginal. I had to acquire this because when I was using it out on the range, yell at me if the camera's a bit jittery because it was really hard to capture the correct angle.
Sure.
That's not an original strap. I can get an original strap. I only got this one because it's new and it's robust. If I got an original strap, it would probably break and fall off. It would end up damaging the rifle. So that's just to sling the rifle over the shoulder, pretty much. So it's just an over-the-shoulder strap, or to carry it around.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah,
it loops in through the side there.
Yeah, pretty much loops in around the side, and you can just slacken it off as much as you need to. Chuck it over your shoulder, and off you go.
Cool. Do we have any other questions in chat at all?
Yeah, before I launch ahead, let's see if anybody has any other questions, because it's not often they'll get to see something like this. I was reading the comments that a lot of the guys left with regards to the Kar98k being selected as a subject matter for today, and a lot of guys did note that there are other experts who talk about this. That being said, though, you don't often have the opportunity to actually fire back live questions. So take your time, ask anything you want to. And once again, it's not about talking about necessarily the specs and the expertise, but it's about what sort of rifle would you look for, within what budget, and what would you avoid as well. So there are pitfalls to buying a Kar98k. If you do intend to get a license, and if you do intend to start shooting, I definitely recommend it, even for low level to intermediate to advanced shooters. But there are some things that you should look out for if you do buy a Kar98k, because they're not all equals.
Can you use this weapon for hunting?
Yes. Yeah, I personally don't hunt. I only do target shooting, so I do long distance target, either paper or clay discs. But you can. It's highly effective, and the stopping power and the killing power with this particular rifle is absolutely enormous. If you got hit with one of these rounds, it would literally take your head off. You would have nothing left.
Damn.
It's very, very, very effective. Actually, I'll show the audience. I don't know. Do we have any shooters in the audience, by the way?
Anybody out there shooting? He has a Yugo refit Kar98 that was a war capture by the USSR that was given to Yugoslavia. So
yep.
Sounds like he's a shooter. He says, also a question from Ronnie, which is saying, how many of the Kar98s were manufactured, roughly?
14,600,000
14
roughly. Yeah.
million, Jesus.
Yeah, so a lot of them manufactured, and not many of them have been left in this state, and that's why they're so rare. Because once again, they were repurposed, and they ended up all over the world, and they're still being used now. There are some Middle Eastern countries, as I said. I'm pretty sure the Israelis still use them. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody has other information, but I know that there are a lot of Middle Eastern countries. Hey, there are some Middle Eastern countries that still use Stugs and Panzer IVs. So.
And we got another question about the ammunition. It says, Mick says, how expensive is the ammunition? I assume it's not made anymore.
No, they still make it. So my ammunition that I have is made, I believe, in the Czech Republic. And I've got the box right here, actually. So if you can see this. Hang on, let's see. Got a bit of lag here.
There we go. Yeah,
there we go. Oops. Yeah, so it's 8x57 JSs, or the official designation is the 7.92 times 57 millimeter Mauser, but they've just sort of shortened it to 8 times 57. And for those of you who are shooters, they're 196 grains, or 12.7 grams. So for a box of, how many are in here? I think there are 50. So 50 rounds are $65. So they're not cheap.
$65, okay.
Yeah, so $65 Australian. You're talking about half that if you're looking at a pound. So about 32 pounds a box. So I'll show you these guys just by comparison. So when I go out target shooting, and I've actually brought in a modern German rifle today, as well, just to show the difference. So here we've got a 22 hollow point versus a hold them up.
Yeah, look at that
versus
difference.
the round from the Kar98k. So let's put it this way: if you got hit with that 22 hollow point in the face, you're not going to be getting back up again. If you get hit by the by the Kar98, you're certainly not getting back up again this century. So you can have a look just at the size of the projectile. It's absolutely colossal.
And that 22 round that you said goes into that modern gun that you showed me earlier, right?
Yeah, correct. So I've got another a precision benchtop match rifle that I'll be showing you. I'll go into that in further detail, but I sent Hans some photos of some groupings.
Yep.
So I'll show you some groupings of what that rifle can achieve. It's not always about having the bigger sword, guys. It's about how you use the sword, much like with the Company of Heroes. All of us have had moments when we've sent the Tiger 1 or the Tiger 2 into a watery grave. So it's all about how you command the weapon. There was a question earlier about whether or not this is yeah, I am watching the stream. Someone just asked. I'm watching the stream so that I can look at the questions.
Yeah.
Yes, so this was the primary rifle that they used as their sniper's rifle. So it's just a matter of basically equipping it with a scope. These days, most of the guys out on range use devices to calculate windage and elevation. So elevation is the vertical axis, and windage is the horizontal axis, and they're basically the two metrics that you use to determine how you shoot. So back in the day, if somebody was taking a long-range shot, they would just visually observe the surrounds. You know, they would stick a finger up in the air and work out which way the wind's going, and then do some rough calculations on paper. These days we have apps which make everything really simple, and there's a device called a Kestrel as well, which even measures the relative humidity in the atmosphere so that you can change your trajectories and adjust your scope. When I shoot, I try and as much as I can to basically stick to using traditional methods, because just like with the GPS, if you get used to driving with a GPS, you forget how to navigate. So it's really important to learn how to actually acquire your targets as well, not just using electronic devices to go into, autopilot mode, which is another beauty of this piece. It takes you back to a time where, where it was all about, marksmanship was all about precision and about who was, the quickest at doing all of their mathematical calculations, pretty much.
Cool. Would it be possible at all for you to maybe put around in the chamber just to see how it looks? or is
Yeah,
that
sure.
too
I'm
dangerous?
not going to chamber the round though, because if I accidentally shoot it, I'll probably end up killing about 3 of my neighbours, um, which I don't want to do. So what I'll do is I'll show you. And it's really, I don't want to smash my computer. Really hard to sort of get a good look at it. I'll pick up the camera and swing around afterwards. Okay. So if anyone's wondering what that red, hang on. Actually, what I'll do is I'll pick up the camera.
Yep.
So. What I'll also take some detailed photos and I'll pass them on to you, Hans, so you can show the audience properly. So over here, we've got this this red latch. So when this was imported originally, sorry, you don't want to see my clutch there in my pajamas. When this was originally imported into Australia, it would have been a requirement to mark the safety catch. So that's basically the safety catch. So obviously, being a military grade weapon, they didn't have a mark for the safety catch. So they were just marked for domestic consumer purposes. As you can see over here, if we can
see the
focus
serial
in,
numbers and stuff on all the different parts there on the bolt, on the top there as well. It's hard for the camera to focus in though.
Hang on, let me see if I can get a good shot. Hang on.
See there as well as some numbers on the side there.
So I'm not sure how clearly you can see this over here. Let me see if I can zoom in. So here we've got the S243 code with the year of manufacture. So S243 was the code for the Borsigwald Berlin factory, and the 1937 is the year of manufacture. Actually, what I'm going to do is, give me a second. It's going to bring up the Discord chat so that I can actually see properly where we're at, and that way I can focus it live rather than looking online. Okay, so going back to this. Okay, so let's see if we can get it trained in on there. It's always hit and miss. Yeah. No, it's very hard. I'll have to. You can see the Waffen arms or the Imperial Eagles.
Maybe if you put your finger in front of the camera, it might force it to focus on the.
Yeah.
If you hide the camera, and then get it to focus, to put you completely cover the camera with your hand, it might force it to focus the focus on the gun itself when it shows. Yeah, it's hard to see. I can vaguely make out 3 stamps on the side there, but yes.
Yeah, it's a really reflective surface, guys. So sorry about the marking about. You can see the markings a bit clearer here. And yeah, there was a comment in the chat with regards to the condition. Yeah, it's in extremely good condition. The guys who carried these rifles, you have to understand that this was not just their tool of the trade. Their survival depended on it. And in terms of efficiencies and in discipline, the German army was pretty much unsurpassable in that regard, and the guys treated their weapons with absolute utmost respect because their lives depended on it.
Your camera stopped working.
Oh, hang on.
We've got a question from Tenchi, who is an avid World War II collector himself. He's got a cool Wehrmacht uniform. He's asking about the bore condition of the rifle.
The bore condition. The bore condition is good, and I know that because the shoots are very solid and a very tight grouping. So it doesn't have a lot of scoring or marking along the bore. So it shoots very well. It's an accurate rifle. So here we go. So that's another indicator with regards to the originality of the piece and the fact that it's not a Russian capture. So with the Russian capture rifles, the sight hoods were all pretty much ripped off and tossed in the melting pot. So I'll just scan really slowly across the rifle so you can get a sense of it. Is that coming through clear, guys?
Yep, should be fine.
So it's in absolute pristine condition, which is almost hard to believe for a rifle of this age. And here's the buttstock, arc around. You can see that there. I'll just, would you like me to take another slow shot just across the top so everybody can see the
sure,
bolt and the top of the rifle? Yeah, you won't see anything like this. It's very, very hard to find. And it was very difficult to convince the guy to sell it to me as well. He was very attached to it, as you can imagine.
Mm. And yes, Tenchi, all matching, I believe. Everything.
Correct.
All the serial numbers.
Yep, it's completely matching. Yeah, it's completely matching. So once again, for those of you who tuned in a bit later, it's rare because it's a Borsigwald, and Borsigwald was the second factory to produce the Mauser. Also, it's a very, very low serial number. So it's number, where's the serial? It's number 6,220 on the production line, and they produced millions of them out of this factory. And in that particular year, they produced 40,000 rifles on the dot. So this was out of their very, very first batch. So to find a Borsigwald without the suffix, because they end up, it gets to X amount, then they would add an A, then a B, so forth, to signify another 10,000 rifles. Very, very hard to find.
That she's super excited over the. He's really interested in the piece. He also asked, like, how much did you, if you're willing to disclose it, how much did you pay for it originally?
It was in the thousands. I won't say exactly how much, out of respect to the family, but it wasn't cheap, and they've gone up exponentially. So just to reiterate, because I know we discussed this earlier, they can range at auction from the 8,000 Australian dollar mark right up to the 15,000. I've seen one go for around 15,000, and it's the only one that I've seen that's in comparative condition. Once again, matching number. It hasn't been rebored. And it's got the original varnish on it. Only thing that's not original is the strap. Obviously, I replaced that because I don't want it to fall and break when I was using it out in field. But other than the strap, everything is original, and that's a close repro anyway. I wanted to keep it looking the part pretty much.
Awesome. What is the next thing we're going to move on to now?
So, any other questions, guys?
Oh yeah, let's try again. Anyone else got any more questions about the piece here?
Hey Tenchi, how are you? Did you have any questions, Tenchi, before we go to the next piece? Because I've got a few other interesting.
You can use it for hunting, Tobuster, but as the round is quite big, whatever you probably shoot, you might explode it. So you probably want to go for a gun with a lot smaller caliber.
Like a 22, which is what I'll be showing shortly. So I'll just quickly recap for the guys that have just joined. Make sure you do join early next time, though, because you'll miss out on a lot of content that's hard to repeat. But I believe this is going on YouTube anyway, isn't it?
Yes, I'll be repurposing this video for YouTube. So if you guys do miss anything, you can check it out on YouTube later on, maybe next week or the week after next.
Awesome. So I'll just quickly do another re-highlight. So we're comparing a modern hollow point versus a round for the Kar98. So that's a 22 long rifle round, which you would use for hunting small game like ducks and rabbits. And the bigger round is what you would use to hunt Soviets during World War II. So you can see a distinctive difference. So
hunting Soviets, hunting duck.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
So there you go. Colossal difference between the size of the round. So if you shot a duck with the Kar98k, it would be overkill. You'd be shooting things like wild boars, bison, kangaroos, etc., etc. Once again, I'll say that I don't hunt. I only do precision target shooting. I do bench shooting or match shooting for those of you who shoot. Yeah.
Should I bring up the groupings really quick just to show them?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go over the groupings.
So here once again, is the first picture I have here. So which one are we looking at here?
Hang on, let's see. Is it possible to zoom in on those? Okay, so just to give the audience some insight, this was at a 100-meter range, or the range is a 500-meter range. I won't say which range it is. Anyway, it's here in Melbourne, and that was in windy conditions, and that was an entire box of 50 rounds through that one grouping. So that's what the Anschutz can pretty much do at 100 meters. 100 meters is a pretty long distance. So as you can see, I've marked it at the top. I was using the SK match rounds times 50. And it's all about just getting your windage and elevation and shooting. So as I was saying to Hans, much like with Company of Heroes, if you've got a Tiger and you're commanding it in an absolutely ghastly manner, it's useless. So it's all about how to utilize your weapon. So if you're using a Kar98k and you're shooting poorly, it's as ineffective as a 22 that's being fired poorly. So it's all about it's all about how you shoot.
Got a question here from Tenchi again. He says, for my M1 Gerard, I have to be particular about using M2 Bull Surplus. Does the K98 require any particular ammo for safe use?
That's a good question. I use these check rounds. They're not cheap. We covered that earlier. I think you weren't here when we covered that. So we did the calculation. It works out to be around £32 a box, or 65 Australian dollars a box of 50, which isn't too bad. Because if you're shooting things like 338 Lapuas or 50 cals, you're talking about $10 a round. So it's not too bad. It's pretty economical. I don't reload my own rounds because I shoot mainly 22s. But it's a piece that I wouldn't want to shoot too often because it's in pristine condition. If I was shooting something like this regularly, I would go and buy a rifle that was pretty much completely knackered, that was just used and abused. And to answer your question, Hans, I will more than likely end up buying another one, but just one that's cheaper. So I'll just find one at auction that still has the same bore, the same caliber, but something that I don't mind if I'm dropping. This one is a museum quality piece, and it's really a collector's item. You don't want to be shooting with it on the range because it's just so tightly put together. All it takes is to drop it once. And dude,
I'd be so paranoid. I got myself a new PC recently, and I had to open it up, and I was so worried about messing the insides to potentially break something and breaking maybe a couple of $1,000 PC. But mentioning dropping maybe a $10,000 freaking rifle and breaking that, oh god, it would feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Do you mind if I answer some of these questions, Hans?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, thank you very much, Britboy, for the commentary. So it's all, I do bench rifle shooting, so it's easier than shooting from the hip. But I do take a lot of pride on my precision. I work on it a fair bit. Mighty Owl, how does it feel in the hands and how does it recoil? I'm a pretty powerfully built guy. I'm 6'6", so I don't really feel the recoil too badly, to be honest with you. So recapping on what was discussed earlier, the Mauser uses the exact same round that the MG42 and the MG34 uses. So I guess you could say it's a baby MG42. Aside from the fact that it holds 5 rounds and it doesn't fire 1,400 rounds per minute, it sounds exactly as an MG42 would sound individually if you were, firing them shot by shot. Next question: corrosive ammo? No, not really. You basically just clean it. So for those of you who shoot, and if any of you do have antique German rifles such as this, I highly recommend getting a product called Ballistol. Ballistol is like a universal oil that was invented during, I believe, World War I. And the Germans used Ballistol on all of their war medals. Anything that was metallic moving parts, they used to lubricate tanks. So after a session at the firing range, I basically just spray Ballistol all over the rifle, literally, and into all of the components. And then I just stick the appropriate jag down there. Carefully, of course. I don't just stick it down there. I'm very careful so as not to damage the rifling, and you clean it. So that's another incentive for me to go to 22 long rifle, because with 22 long rifles, they like being dirty. It's actually a negative to clean them every single time. So it's actually a bit of a pain in the ass to go out to the firing range. You have to come home. You have to pull everything apart. You have to clean it. It's a hassle. With the 22s, you stick it in the bag, off you go, and it's really, really nice to shoot, and cheap ammo as well, compared to a session shooting this guy.
Cool. So let's have a look at some of the other groupings. So we saw this one. The second picture here with the 10 NEX .22 LR rounds. So what is this? This is...
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, so this particular day, let me have a look if I've got some dates here. So I was calibrating my scope. The particular rifle in question, which I'll be showcasing in a second, is the Anschutz 1903 MSR silhouette rifle, which is a 22 long rifle 5-shot. It's a match grade or a competition grade benchtop rifle. Now, the reason why I'm showcasing this particular rifle today is because, much like last time, how I highlighted a dagger from the past and a contemporary dagger, it's really interesting from a historical point of view and from a craftsmanship perspective also to see that all of the traditions that were applied on this particular piece here have been maintained and they've been transferred across through knowledge that's been acquired over generations. So these guys that were producing these rifles, they were effectively families of gunsmiths, and you're talking about a collective knowledge that's been gathered over hundreds of years in their particular craft, and that applies to the weaponsmiths who make swords, axes, daggers, etc., etc. Same thing applies to the rifles as well. So the Anschutz that I shoot on a regular basis at the firing range, although not for the last 2 years because we've been in lockdown, has that DNA. It's got that family legacy where they were making rifles long time ago, and they're still using that that same methodology to produce that high quality product, even in a contemporary environment. So let me know when you're ready to see the next rifle, guys.
Yep. Let's. I think we're all ready to check out the main rifle, well, the modern day rifle.
Done. Let me just put this other rifle safely on the ground. I've got the blind pulled. I didn't want the neighbours to see that I'm pointing guns at their window. Aussies are a bit funny with guns. So. Okay, so I'll have to show it from a few different angles. This gun's an absolute masterpiece, and I will point out that I bought several of them, not just one of them, because I fell in love with the design. So let me just pop it down here. I'll close the bipod, and I'll put it down. Okay, so this is my silhouette competition benchtop rifle with a Carl scope. I'll also add that with these sorts of rifles, the scope is more important than the rifle in many regards. If you've got a bad scope and you're a shooter, you pretty much can't shoot anything at a long range. And particularly with precision shooting or with sniping in the military, it's really important to be able to hit your target and to disable it or kill it the first shot, because you give your position away. So this particular scope here has a 10 to 50 magnification. So just to put that into perspective, from 50 meters, I can shoot a fly in the middle of the paper accurately, and I've done that many times before. Sometimes I'll set up little trick shot targets on my target. So, for example, I'll put pins or tacks or staples on certain points, and 99% of the time I'll shoot them the first time every single time. But once again, it doesn't come down necessarily to skill. It comes down to knowing your firearm and not understanding the tolerances, understanding the conditions that are presented on the day, and just knowing how to use it. And it's also having the finesse. So I'll do a bit of a tour of the gun. Once again, I'll just pick the camera up. So this particular gun, once again, has a competition match mechanism. So it's got a dual pull on the trigger. So when you're deploying the trigger, you pull it slightly and it clicks. And that's basically a preparation for you to be into your firing mode. And then you very, very, very slightly pull it back once again, which is basically a hairline mechanism, and then it'll fire the round. So you hold your breath, you pull it, and then you pull again a second time, very, very lightly. So this has the formidable Carl scope on it. and Carl's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, if you've got any additional information, but I believe they invented the rifle scope. So the Carl's is basically the Rolls Royce of rifle scopes.
Wow.
Closely followed by Swarovski. Some say the Swarovski is the equal, but I believe the Carl's is, in my opinion anyway, the better of the two. If you're looking at doing competition shooting, or if you want to hit stuff the first time every single time.
So you were saying that was a 50 times magnification, correct?
Yep, 10 to 50.
10 to
so,
50.
for example, just to explain to some of the guys out there who aren't tech savvy with this sort of stuff, you have fixed magnifications on certain scopes. Most scopes will sort of stretch out to around the 20 magnification, and this scope just goes, that extra mile. So you can basically use this as a spotting scope. So a lot of guys will buy either binoculars or an individual spotting scope monocle when they go out, whereas this basically fills both purposes. So you can shoot as close as 10 meters, and you can shoot out as far as 10 magnification, which is pretty close, and then you've got the 50 for the extreme shots. So just to put things into perspective, I've also got a 308, and I've done 1 and 2 kilometer shots using this scope.
That's
and I'm talking about small clay discs, red clay discs at 1.5 2 kilometers.
And how much is the scope itself compared to like the gun? You were saying the scope was a lot more expensive than the gun.
Yeah, I believe that this gun is now very difficult to acquire because it was limited edition here in Australia, at least, because they're handmade in Germany. I think from memory, I paid around 5,000 Australian dollars for the scope.
Oh.
And the gun was about, I think, 3,500. So all up, it's close to 9,500-ish, 9,000 thereabouts. Because obviously you've still got the bipod as well. I've got a custom mag that allows for more rounds, etc., etc. You end up always spending on mounts. It has titanium mounts as well, so the mounts are another $400 or $500. So yeah, all up you would need to allow for around 9,000 Australian dollars for a setup like this.
Good, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
How do soldiers know the range of targets to put into the scope? Do they just estimate?
Yeah, so that's another thing we were sort of covering earlier. So back in the day, you would have these blokes sort of range finding on the spot. It comes down to experience, and then just calibrating. At say 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, a millimeter can throw off your projectile by meters. You can completely miss the target. So if you're not adjusting the scope and you're shooting on the fly, you could be looking at something if it's calibrated for 50 meters and shooting at say 300 meters, and you'd literally have to point the scope to be looking at right up at the sky in order to hit that target in a linear line. So it really depends, and that's why tank warfare was so complicated during the war as well, because most of the guys didn't have stabilizers on their guns, and you wouldn't be able to shoot if you were moving at all. So what you see in the game is really a myth, especially with the Shermans. There's no way that they were shooting when they were moving. You would have to physically stop, shoot, acquire the target. They would miss probably 80% of the time, and then they would go again. Whereas the Germans did have advanced optics on their tanks, and in some cases stabilizers as well, which is why there was such a big disparity between the knockout rates between the Germans and all of the other forces during the war.
Gravemouth, this is not a World War II rifle that you're looking on screen at the moment. This is a modern day rifle.
Yeah, so this is a modern rifle. So the purpose to show this was just to show that continuity of excellence in craftsmanship. So when we're all long gone and dust, somebody will be showing this on YouTube and saying, hey, this was from 100 years ago and here it is now. And then by then the Mauser K98k will still be running and all of us will be gone. That they're built to withstand the test of time.
Impressive. Any other questions in chat? Anyone else got any questions about maybe this gun or the Kar98k that we were showing earlier? Does the kick after a shot butt you up, so you have to completely reset between each shot?
No, not really. No, I mean, for me, it's manageable. I'll give you an example. I've got I don't know if your audience has heard of the Atlas shotgun, the infamous El Cheapo Turkish shotgun, which is a lot of fun to shoot. When you shoot a slug with that, it literally rips your shoulder out of place.
Oof.
This is it doesn't sort of have that percussive force that travels throughout the gun when you fire it, so it's manageable. You could fire it all day long, and you're not. Well, personally, I could fire it all day long, and I wouldn't be sore. There was another question regarding a G43. So there was a G40K variant as well. There was a paratrooper variant. There was a sniper variant. So there were lots of variants of the Mauser. And they took different forms. And as we discussed earlier, there was also a Bakelite version that was designed for the Fallschirmjägers that they tested in the mid to late 30s, which was obviously lighter and it was designed to jump out of planes with and not be too cumbersome to handle.
Any video?
Bakelite was the plastic.
Any video you could possibly show us shooting with this rifle? Do you have any footage of maybe yourself shooting a rifle or something similar?
I've got footage somewhere of me firing a G40, an MG42 that I could pull up for you. I don't have it right now, but I could provide it for you when I was in Eastern Europe.
Could do.
Yep.
Pretty
and
sure
various other guns.
We could probably just go on to. I mean, I think there's a clip from Skippy who actually fired a Kar98 recently at a firing range. See if I can find it. Skippy FX. I'm pretty sure he had a. Where was it?
What does it say? So let's say you're doing a 30-meter shot. Yeah, absolutely. So, Brit Boy, yeah, absolutely. So you have to completely calculate it in accordance to the grain of the round. So if you're using an app-based calculator on your phone, you have to input different data. So you need to input the relative humidity, the distance, the grain of the round, the feet per second, etc., etc. So all of this, I mean, some of the calculators even account for the Coriolis effect, the curvature of the Earth. So it really depends. There's a lot of variables that go into it, but as you can imagine, in a warfare situation, you don't have time for that. You basically just have to wing it, and you get a sense of intuition of where you have to shoot and how to adjust.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly show off a clip here from Skippy. Actually fired a Kar98 the other month. Check this out, guys. He's firing a Mauser 98k.
All right, let's check it out.
Sounds really loud. So.
Yeah, it's loud, super loud.
Yeah, he's saying it has quite a lot of kick to it as well.
He doesn't strike me as somebody who shoots regularly. You can sort of tell from his posture that he's not a regular shooter and how he's unchambering the round.
So there you go.
So there you go.
Quick little show there of the gun firing there.
Yeah, they're awesome guns. So even for the novice, you can really crack off some shots and shoot with a pretty good degree of accuracy. It's surprisingly good. It shoots a lot better than a lot of modern guns.
That's something really interesting. Love it. Also, Subway smacking everything. I had the pleasure to grab an M1 Garand when I was in service. Oh, really? That's cool, Gravemouth. I think I personally, when I was in Vancouver, I think I fired a Thompson, but it wasn't automatic, unfortunately. They modified it so it just fired single shots. But it was still cool to be able to try and fire something like an original World War II weapon piece. But yeah, I definitely want to do what Skippy did and go. I think he went to Vegas and there was like a place where you could fire all World War II. You get like the World War II package and you could fire all World War II guns, which sounds like a really good bucket list thing to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's definitely cool, and they've got a lot of history, and that's the thing. They're nice historical pieces from a collector's point of view, because you can actually take them out range and use them as well. They're not just sitting in your collection at home in the safe or on a mantelpiece. They've got a lot of character, and for those who weren't here earlier, the Kar98k that we showed off earlier is a service rifle and was used in the war, and we know for a fact that it's been used. The pointy end's been used against incoming Soviet troops, so it's a real piece of history.
Okay, so have we got anything else to cover for today, or?
We certainly do. We've got one more piece, so shall I just put the gun down?
My brother stag do in Romania. A soldier friend of mine laid down to fire a sniper rifle, and the Romanian ex-soldier immediately said they could tell he was special forces, at which point he went back to the hotel in a mood because no one is supposed to know. Wow, that's cool.
All right, so just to give you a perspective of the men who are actually firing the Kar98k, I've brought this in to show it off today. So we've got an original officer candidate's tunic from the Gebirgsjäger or the mountain troops with a sharpshooter's lanyard first class. So this guy would have been a crack shot. He would have known how to command the rifle better than any of us, that's for sure. So just to give you a perspective, and it's hard to get a sense of the scale of the uniform, but it's actually quite tiny. So I'll zoom in right into the sharpshooter's lanyard, which is an award.
That's cool.
So I'm not sure if we can see that clearly, guys.
Let's go down slightly. Yeah, just hold there. There we go. Yeah, we can see the eagle, the swastika, the swords, the shield behind it. Looks like oak leaves as well around the rim.
Yeah, correct. And it's even got the original maker's mark on the back. Gee, this camera's difficult to come in.
Yeah, you can barely make that out. It's really hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely can see some lettering there.
Yeah, the uniforms are absolutely gorgeous in terms of the fabrication. So if you look at the eagle here, that's the one for the officer, as you can see. For those of you who are aware, and that's actually a bullion. That's actually made out of a wire. So it's embroidered with an actual solid metal wire. So they were built to last. So you can, when you run your finger against. No, it's actually a bullion. So it's actually made out of metal, much like with all of the decorative sections along the sleeves. And this is a completely original tunic. It hasn't been rebuilt. I'll explain what that means in a second. But the guy who originally was wearing this was awarded with the Ostfront medal. So he would have fought in the Eastern Fronts. So I'll show you that medal next time we do our session. I've got one that's in mint condition, and we've also got the ribbon for the second class Iron Cross, which Hans has two of. So
for some reason on the camera quality, it looks orange rather than red.
Yeah, that's it's deceptive. It's just because of the light. I've got a ring light in the back, which is casting a different light. So this one here has suffered a bit of discoloration. So it does have an orangey tinge to it, but that's only because it's
that's just, what I'm showing on stream. That's what the color it should look like. That red there.
Yeah. So that's also an original one, but that's one that hasn't been exposed to sun because this would have been worn in field. So this is an original one. You can see that the guy wasn't awarded any additional awards beyond those ones because there are no loops. So normally on this side of the breast pocket, on the left side where they wore the medals, there were loops where they would have fixed their awards. We'll go over those next time. And here we've got the Edelweiss, which was the official logo for the Gebirgsjäger, aka the mountain troops. So a lot of these guys were either Austrians or Alpine Germans who were really adept skiers. So they didn't use a lot of automatic weaponry. They were mainly using the Kar98ks, usually in sniper variations, and they would use donkeys to carry a lot of their stuff because they were in really treacherous terrain. So in Company of Heroes 2, these dudes would have been represented by the Jaeger Light Infantry Squad.
There you go.
They would be your Gebirgsjägers in the game.
Boy,
so it's really nice. And
this was literally was this uniform literally worn as he was squeezing the trigger, or is it more of a dress uniform?
Dress uniform, correct. Yep. So this is a parade uniform. yeah, wouldn't be very comfortable fighting in this one. But I mean,
Yeah,
throughout the course of the war, it got to the point where some of them were fighting in their pajamas basically because they were so overstretched. But yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful piece, totally original. If you want to see some really clear, really nice shots of the Kar98k, this uniform, which is being modelled by my lovely wife, and also heaps of other pieces, just jump on my Instagram. Appreciate the support. It's a very new page. It's only been up for a couple of weeks, and I highlight a lot of Hans' stuff there as well. So we'll be continuing to display that. So any pieces that are for sale, or just in general, if you want to see a spread of really unique things that you may not see in other places, log in, have a look, check it out, and feel free to field any questions. I'm always more than happy to spend time to pass on my knowledge and to help the community.
Yeah, fascinating. I love the fact I didn't know that the fact about the lanyard there, not lanyard, but the cord, the guy, the silver
it's
cord.
It's a lanyard. Yeah, the sharp shooting lanyard. So that's a first class one. So there were different classes denoting, different tickets that they were receiving to denote expertise. So yeah, so this guy would have been a particularly talented shooter.
Yeah, Fruitboy saying for people in the UK, you need to consider what you can legally purchase. Don't just assume you can buy any of this stuff. So yeah, I imagine for most of Europe as well, that when it comes to purchasing, especially weapons, you're not generally not being legally allowed to purchase those types of things. I guess uniforms and things like that are probably fine. Maybe a touchy subject in Germany itself and Austria. I imagine for the for anything with the swastika on, but for private collections, I imagine uniforms and things like that would be fine.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I deal a lot with Europeans. I source a lot of items for Europeans and vice versa. I deal with some really high-end clients all over the world and with some of the top dealers, and also a lot of personalities and historical experts. So weapons, refer to your local law enforcement to find out what's required to gain a permit. I'm pretty sure that Australia's the nastiest country in the world when it comes to getting permits. So if I can get a permit here, you can pretty much get a permit anywhere. Which is pretty logical in this day and age. But as for any other Third Reich militaria items, they're legal in every country pretty much. You just have to be aware and you have to be sensitive of the fact that a lot of people don't want them to be publicly displayed. So, for example, some of the biggest trade shows and dealers are in Germany. And when they're displaying things on their websites, they just have to conceal the swastikas. But other than that, you're good to go. They're not illegal in any country whatsoever. So if you do want to collect historical awards, it's an important part of history. I collect them. I don't politicize anything that I do. I'm not here for the ideology. I'm just here for the history. And they're beautiful pieces. And I just appreciate them for what they are rather than talking about the politics behind them, because the majority of the guys weren't political. They were fighting for the Wehrmacht, for their country, and that was it. No different to the English lads and the Aussies and everybody else. So there are good stories as well as bad ones on every side.
Exactly, yeah. And so awesome, guys. Any other questions? Again, Brit was saying again, really appreciate your time. Been a great afternoon. I'll also catch the replay as I join late. No worries, Brit. I'll probably pop it up on, like I say, on YouTube later on, maybe either this week or next week. But yeah, again, if you guys are curious about the I've just posted the link to Instagram once more in chat, so please go do follow that. And here we also have the business card. I'll just quickly show that on stream for you guys here. So, Whispers from the Past Militaria, experts in appraisals, authenticity certification, and investment grade military antiques. So there you guys go.
Yep. And Company of Heroes 2 Noob as well.
And Code 2 Noob as well.
Exactly. I've had a few episodes with Hans screaming at me. So yeah, join up, guys. Show your support. Hans has already told you about the giveaways, so I'm sponsoring some giveaways, some tournament prizes, and I gave him a couple of gifts as well for his service to our community. I'll be doing lots of giveaways too, and even if you don't have the capacity to collect today, you might be able to collect tomorrow. always good picking up some new friends and some new experiences, and just learning a bit about history. So please sign up to Instagram. I've got some pretty cool items that are going to be put on there. I've got some very, very historically significant Luftwaffe groups, Spanish Civil War stuff, all sorts of rare variants, Knights Crosses of the Iron Cross, Oak Leaves, all sorts of rarities are going to be coming up in the next few weeks. The more support I get, the more incentive I have to stick up cool stuff on the page. So looking forward to seeing all of you there, and hopefully you enjoyed the session. I think Hans, you're going to put up some sort of a survey with regards to what we're doing in the next show. I'll come up with some ideas.
Next time I'll be putting up, so for the next fortnight, so every fortnight we're planning on doing these streams where we look at new different type of military artifacts, generally German focused, and well, I'll pop a survey on YouTube, and I'll put 3 options up. For instance, you guys can vote on them, and then whatever gets the most votes, we'll do that for that week or whatever. And again, here, just quickly show you guys, this is the second class Iron Cross that one of you guys can win if you win the last cash money, the 9th tournament that I do. So yeah, if you win that, you'll earn this awesome second class Iron Cross. This is a real authentic Iron Cross from World War II. And I've got, for me, this is I've got 2 in here, which is my personal collection. I've got two boxes here, and they've got their own certificates of authenticity. Here, hang on, one sec. So I'll just quickly show you guys here. So these prove, that they're authentic. They've got all the information stuff on there as well.
Yeah, so I can do certificates for pieces. Even if you've got a piece that you need an opinion on, even if you're not buying from me, I've got a very, very strong opinion with regards to ensuring that we preserve history correctly. So even if you're buying from another dealer, or if you're buying from a private source and you want somebody to cast an eye over your piece, more than happy to assist. It's all about spreading the knowledge, spreading the love, much like how Hans dedicates himself to teaching us how to play Company of Heroes. I'm offering the service where I can educate you and provide you with a snapshot of history, and to inspire you and to direct you with how to go about developing a collection that will be prized in the future, and to ensure that you protect your investment, because they really are investment pieces and they're important historical pieces as well. So once again, feel free to contact me, and the Instagram's up there. Come and say g'day. Join up. We're getting a really, really healthy membership base, and I'll be doing my own prize draw in the future as well. When I hit around 500 members, I'm going to be giving away an Iron Cross second class and also a mint condition Ostromp medal as well. So I'll be doing a prize draw in the future, parallel to Hans's one. So make sure that you sign up to Hans's competitions as well. Support Hans, and hopefully, we'll be seeing you on Instagram too.
Awesome. I'm just trying to open up these this box here by taking off all these labels. Try and peel them off here. So yeah, if you do decide to purchase anything off of Gerard here, they will be packaged nice and safely in lots of bubble wrap, as well as a nice big cardboard box. So, and the medals themselves, as you can see here, they've got their own nice little, very nice plastic box with a really nice kind of see-through plastic kind of screen there, which is very nice. It just kind of seals it in place as well, so it doesn't like move around. So if I shake it, you can see it doesn't really move around at all, which is lovely.
Yeah, it molds around the metal. It's like an archival grade box to protect it. It's like a suspension box. It's almost like a film, like a membrane, and it's got little legs on it, so that if you do start collecting more metals, you can put them up on your mantelpiece and store them in there. I also offer professional framing services, so have a look on my Instagram and you'll see some really high-end picture frames that I've put together that contain metals as well for clients.
Actually, these clips that you gave me here, so I've got a little bag here with these extra clips. I guess these are little stands I can put them on, I believe.
Yeah, you can put them either horizontally or vertically.
Perfect, there you go. So, and then I've got nice little stands, so I've got these little clips at the bottom. You guys can see that, little clips, so I can just have them nice and there. There you go. So you can have it on your shelf or your mantelpiece or whatever to display it, which is really cool. It's great. That just literally slots right in place perfectly, and you can move the clips along however you want onto the edge if you want to do so. So awesome. Hi lads, thanks for watching that video. If you want more content, click up here. Or click over here to click on other content. But make sure to click on that middle button to subscribe to the channel. Okay, and I stream every single day on twitch.tv/HelpingHans. Catch you in the next one, guys. Take care.